The recording has started.
Great. Before the presentation starts this evening, we would just like to review the online accessibility statement, which serves as a reminder of resources available for our students. So, access and accommodations. Your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this event that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center, or OAC, at snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430 or the Campus Accessibility Center at cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118 as soon as possible. Attendees may also complete the OAC live captioning and live ASL interpreter request form and provide at least 1 week advance notice to coordinate event accommodations. So I now have the honor and pleasure of introducing our host for tonight's session, Ryan Moore. So Ryan is an adjunct faculty here at SNHU and a senior vice president at Bank of America. Ryan is the digital deposits product manager, excuse me. He has been with the company over 17 years and has held many different roles within the organization. I would now like to turn the microphone over to Ryan. Ryan, the virtual floor is yours.
Great, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you all through this presentation. I'm really hoping for a lot of engagement through the chat box and to talk through a presentation that I've really wanted to talk with students about for a long time. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to do that this evening with the LEADS conference. So again, welcome everybody. I'm really looking forward, and please continue to be engaging through the chat box, ask questions. We'll be as interactive as possible, and we'll try to make the next hour go by as quick as possible. I know it's late for folks on the East Coast and certainly supper time for folks on the West Coast, so I really appreciate you spending your evening with us. I want to start by opening a quick poll for the folks on the phone, and I will just go through a little bit of an introduction of myself here. So before we get started, I really would like to know what your employment status is. So we're going to be talking a lot about careers and how to manage through careers and successes and failures that I've had in mind. So tell me what you are doing for work right now, working full-time, part-time, some work, some school, something else. Feel free to use the chat box. So as Chantel mentioned, I have been now at Bank of America for 17 years. It was my really first real job out of college. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I consider myself a digital banker. My focus is on our deposit products, so checking, savings, certificates of deposit, IRAs. Everything in the digital space is something that I manage for our deposits products. I live in Maine, work in Maine. I am actually a full-time work from home associate, and I was pre-pandemic. So transitioning to work from home during the pandemic was just regular life for me. This is also my first year at SNHU. So I started teaching marketing and leadership courses in October, and I have been teaching every session since then. So I'm really excited to be here. This is my first LEADS conference and my first presentation at LEADS. So background again for me. So I graduated from the University of Maine in Orono with a business administration bachelor degree. My concentration was marketing. I have an MBA from Hudson University, which is a local great Bangor, Maine college. And now I am working towards my PhD in business administration, and I'm doing that 100% online as well. So really exciting stuff. I started my dissertation this year and looking forward to graduating in May of next year. Personally, I've been married to my wonderful wife for the past 10 years. We have one French bulldog. His name is Murphy, and he is 9 years old, and he is our fur child. So no kids, just one Murphy, the French bulldog. So that is a little bit about me. Want to talk through, let's look at the polls here. So most of you are working full time. I'm assuming working full time and going to school full time, which certainly is a challenge. Got a lot of folks that are also full-time students, which is great. A little bit of work, a little bit of school. So really we're kind of spanning the poll here on what folks are doing for work. So I think working full-time will really, like this presentation should hopefully really resonate with you. And then let's see. So pharmacy tech, students, caretakers, looks like a lot of different variety of careers coming through in the chat, which is fantastic. So I think let's talk through what Agile, or sorry, let's talk through my career path. So if we can leave the poll and go back to the presentation, perfect. And I will give you my brief resume. So like I said, I started it was MBNA at the time, and it was a credit card company at the time. And I started part-time. I worked in the evening. I went to school full-time at the University of Maine. And my primary goal at the time was really to be able to afford an apartment and a lifestyle off campus. I didn't want to live on campus when I went to school at the university. So that was my main goal. And I started out as actually a bill collector. I worked as a bill collector for several years. Wasn't a great job. There were a lot of hard conversations and hard time tracking people down, but I did my best there. Transitioned to a customer service role, which is probably one of my least favorite roles that I've had at the bank. Lots of angry customers and really challenging conversations. So that was not my favorite role. I moved into more of a software tester role, which was great and kind of gave me my first taste of digital work, which I'm doing right now. I had a couple of different production jobs, so managing different platforms for the company, managing different marketing campaigns for the company. And then I would say from there, my career really took a turn, and a turn for the good. And I became a call center manager. So I managed a vendor relationship for the bank, managed a multi-site relationship. And really what we did is fulfilled credit card applications over the phone. It was more of a sales role. And it was great. I got to travel. I got to go to great places. Interacting with the teams were amazing, and getting the opportunity to do some sales coaching was great. So I really actually liked that role a lot. But like most things we'll talk through, sometimes you get a little stale with some of those things. So I looked for a change. And that's when I found the digital space that I'm in today. So I had managed in the credit card world with Bank of America for several years. I managed some authenticated offers. Then I moved into a sales strategy role focused on our affinity credit card products. So think of like the MLB credit card or credit cards with other colleges and universities. So I managed a lot of those relationships. And then very recently, within the past year or so, I transitioned into the role I'm in now, which is managing in our deposit space. So it's a brand new product for me. I've learned a lot in the past year, and it's a great opportunity, I think, for me right now. So that is really my very fast bio in a nutshell. But I want to talk through, so let's put up another poll here. So I've had about 9 different jobs in my career. how many jobs would you say that you've all had in your career? Your career, like I said, mine started right after college. Yours can be whatever you think an actual job was. So weigh in on the polls. I'm really loving to see the interaction of the polls. It's great to see kind of the lines chasing each other. So it looks like we've got a lot of people in that 2 to 5 jobs range, which I think is great. And then that 6 to 10 jobs range is coming in close. So we are seeing a lot of variety out there. And honestly, I think, or I hope you'll find that variety ends up being a great opportunity for you as we talk through the rest of the presentation. All right, let's cut the poll off there and head back to the presentation and dive into what we're here to talk about. So I want to at least first caveat that I am not an expert in Agile, but I do work with it on a regular basis. But I'm here to use this framework to really talk through what this can mean for your career. So does anybody know what Agile is? And use the chat function, yes or no. I'm not looking for a definition, but feel free to weigh in on the chat. But Agile is like a software development project management platform. So the real goal of Agile methodology is the end user satisfaction. So it's not necessarily about putting out the very best product. It's about pleasing the end user when everything is done, which I think is great. And one of the successes, or one of the things that I really like about Agile methodology, is it is very iterative. So you're building on a base. You're always building on that base, and it's growing and it's changing and it's modifying itself over time. So we'll talk a lot about iteration and what that means for your career this evening as well. So when we think about the end user when it comes to your career, like what does the end user in your career mean to you? Is it going to be you? Is it your family maybe? Is it a combination of both? So think through who the end user may be in these various scenarios. I'll let that sink in for a second. So let's think about that. So the end user, and now really ask yourself, are you satisfied with the career that you have today? Are you satisfied with your job today? You can think about that. You can respond in the chat box. But are you satisfied with your career today? So we talked through, or I introduced the concept of iteration. And I think, again, we'll continue to build off of that, just like iteration, right? So it's all about making small, manageable changes that ultimately result in a final end product that's related to, that's released to customers. I like to think of it as tweaking the previous version of the software, or really of yourself, to continuously improve. We'll talk a little bit about sprint planning and what that means, but really in the Agile world, you look at something for a very short period of time. So oftentimes that's like a 2-week period that you're building and testing and building and testing. I'm going to recommend that you do the same thing in your career. It's not going to be 2 weeks. Not a lot is going to change in 2 weeks, but think of it as 2 years or 5 years or 6 years. So we're going to talk about those time spans that really could make a difference, or really make you think about when it's time to need a change. Another thing that I think is really great about Agile is the manifesto for the procedure, and it goes something like this. So the Agile manifesto is really about individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So I think that part is really, really important. So the individuals, the interactions that you have with those people versus the tools that you may use to get the job done. The second piece is working software over comprehensive documentation. So what this means to me is it's more important to have something that you're satisfied with than a very detailed plan on how you're going to get there. So you'll find out and how I work and how I operate my Agile model, it's not going to be all written down. The plan isn't going to be all there for you. So that's important to really remember when we're talking through tonight. The third piece is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So again, making sure that we're getting the product right for the customer, and you have to decide who the customer is. And then finally, the last piece is responding to change versus following a plan. So again, things may not go always the way that we want them to, and the way that we respond to it and the way that we react to it is very, very important. We'll talk more about that too. So looking through, it looks like a good mix of yes and no and maybe. A lot of people looking to advance, which is great. So again, I'm hoping to leave you with some tips and tricks tonight that really help you get there. Okay, so let's actually look at what the Agile process looks like. And think of it like this loop, a continuous loop here. So it's typically broken up, like I had said, into short periods of time. Normally in software development, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks. My career sprints are probably anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So about by the time I get 5 years into a role, I'm really kind of itchy for something new. And I'm sure most of you out there probably feel the same way, that it's time for a change. So the way that the Agile process works is you first look for, you figure out what your requirements are, and we're going to dive into all of these pieces in a little bit. So you figure out what your requirements are, you design, you develop, you test, you deploy, and then you review. So those are the Agile steps we'll go through tonight: design, develop, test, deploy, and review. And then what happens? You start the circle again. So every sprint is a new opportunity to start again. So let's look at the first thing, the requirements phase of this. So what are your requirements? And really, I want you to respond in the chat box here on this one. What did you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to be now when you grow up? Like, I ask myself this a lot right now is, what do I want to be when I grow up? And mine has really evolved over time. So when I started my career in 2003, my requirements were really, really simple. I needed a job that would allow me to pay for an apartment and pay my bills and still go to school part-time. That was it. It was a typical college sophomore goals at the time. It wasn't about buying beer. It was about paying for rent. That's what I wanted to do because I didn't want to live on campus. So that was my goal to start out with. And then as you grow in your career, or grow up really, period, your requirements start to change, right? So I went from I want to pay for an apartment to, I probably want a better apartment, or I probably want a better car. So I need a job that'll let me work 40 hours. And then my requirements shifted to, I don't want to get yelled at by customers anymore. So I want to get off the phone. I don't want to take 100 calls every day. And then once that happened, and I was successful there, maybe my requirements changed to, maybe I need a little bit more flexibility. Maybe the 9 to 5 going to the office every day isn't really working for me. So flexibility became a requirement for a career. And then my requirements now are shifting to, Maybe I want to learn something new. I recently chose a new product to learn. I am, again, also going to school for my PhD. Like, I'd like to transition into the academic world at some point. So it's always good to have those goals in mind and figure out what your requirements are at the moment. So the requirements phase is really that is what are your requirements for your career? What are your requirements for your family? What do you want? It could be financial, could be location, it could be work-life balance, or it could just be a change. So think through what your requirements are for your career. I'm seeing a lot of great aspirations in the chat box. So adult training and developing, nonprofits, healthcare project manager, freelance travel writer. That is awesome. Business owners, teacher. So funny story, I never actually wanted to be a teacher when I was growing up, and now that's pretty much all I want to do. So things have really taken a 180 there. Pharmacy project manager. So a lot of great aspirations in the chat box. So I think that's fantastic. All right, let's move to the next phase, which is our design phase. So how are you going to meet these requirements that you just set? And sometimes this is the hard part. So how do you get where you want to go? How do you get what you want out of sometimes the specific day? Sometimes your goals are day by day. What do you want to get out of the year? Sometimes they're year by year. What do you want to get out of your job? Or what do you want to get out of life? So what are your requirements? How are you going to meet those requirements? What do your solutions look like? So do you need to network more? Do you need a degree? Do you need a different degree? Do you need a graduate degree? What do you need to achieve those goals? And one thing I think that's really important to remember is that when you're designing for your plan, when you're designing your career plan, you can't forget to care about what's already in production right now. So you can't forget to care about what your current job is. You can't forget to care about your family, your spouse. You need to make sure that you're building a spot for these other things in your life when you're working through the designs of your future career. A lot of folks weighing in on their designs in the chat box, which is great. I love the interactivity tonight. So thank you everybody for continuing to participate. So after you've designed, you've come up with a plan, it's time to develop. It's time to build on those designs. So take your design and make it happen. So this is where you draw a mental roadmap to help you hit your goals. It can be a physical roadmap, but for the most part, you have a desire in your head of what you want and what the requirements are to get there. You just now have to start building that. So do you enroll in school? Do you take classes that you were missing from a previous degree? Do you improve how you're performing in school or work? When you do well, there are plenty of certificates that even you can look at to better your career. So a degree does not have to be the only answer. So I volunteer with a great Maine organization. And one thing that we promote with high school and kids transitioning into the workforce and even kids in college, and I say kids, I mean students, so people in college, the thing that we really have them focus on is a credential of value. So I think that concept is really, really important, is finding a credential of value that works for you and works for your career plans. And that all goes in the develop phase. So not everybody needs to go through the traditional bachelor's, master's, PhD, multiple masters. Like, you don't have to do that. There are plenty of opportunities and plenty of certificates and credentials of value out there that can help you build on your design. So shop around. The other thing that kind of can happen in this develop stage is the opportunity to network. So I can't really stress enough in this develop stage that meeting new people is really, really critical. Volunteer for a nonprofit. Make sure that you are managing your network in your job right now. Learn something new. Make sure you job shadow. Go meet people in other departments or other areas of the company that you may not have had an opportunity to meet with before. And this could mean that you have to stay late or go on your lunch break or come in early for one of your shifts to start these networking opportunities. I think one of the positive things that I personally think has come from us in the last year of the pandemic has been the opportunity to connect with more people virtually. And even some of those virtual networking opportunities, it's sometimes a little less pressure. It's a little easier to just sit in and get your name out there and maybe come off mute for a second and give a ha-ha and then go back on mute. But at least you're there and you are networking and you are virtually meeting new people. And when those networking opportunities go back to real life and we're able to shake hands again and meet people again, you've at least been able to say, hey, I met you virtually and now we're meeting in person. So that is a great way to build your network. The develop stage is really all about getting you to where you want to be. It's taking your requirements and your design and making it better. And I think one of the important things with Agile and with my thought process here is just because you've drawn your map, because you've built your requirements, doesn't mean you have to follow that map to the end. Like, we are not writing this map in permanent marker. Think of it as writing it on a dry erase board. And if you don't like the path that you're on, erase that second half of the path and start again. Draw a left-hand turn in that path. Like, this is your path and you can change it anytime you want. I think that is my favorite thing about anything Agile is you can change your plan from sprint to sprint. You can add a new requirement and it is great. I'm not ignoring the chat. I see all of you are talking about networking, which is fantastic, and virtual networking. Again, I have been a virtual person for a long, long time, so I'm very comfortable with virtual networking and probably very awkward in non-virtual settings. So again, the virtual part of the pandemic has not been a challenge for me. I know it's been a challenge for some. One of the other things that we need to think about is testing. So testing is a big part of Agile methodology as well. And when I say testing, it is occasionally asking yourself, is this working for me? Is this the plan that I thought it was going to be? Is it working how it's intended to work? And the test phase is all about You build a little, you test a little. You build a little, you test a little. You build a little, you test a little. And you periodically have to stop and ask yourself if what you're doing feels right, if you're meeting the right people, if the class you're taking is a good class. If not, maybe it's not for you. Maybe that's not the career path that you need to go down. I find personally that if I'm not asking questions, then I'm usually not that invested in it, and maybe it's not for me. So figure out what it is for you that kind of sparks that investment. I think that's really important. Another thing to think through in the test phase is not everything goes right the first time. So sometimes, just like in software development, you find a defect, you find a bug in the code. And it could be an error, it could be a problem. And sometimes that problem's apparent from day one, but sometimes it takes time for that problem to develop. So what happens when you find a defect, either in Agile or in your career? There's three things that I think of that you can do. You can live with that defect. A lot of us are probably living with defects in our career right now. You can fix it right now, or you can just choose to fix it later. So live with it, fix it now, fix it later. A defect can be anything. They're usually pretty personal for you. It could be a bad boss, bad coworker, bad hours, bad benefits. It could be anything. So your defect is going to be very personal for you. Some defects are going to be so bad that you don't want to live with them. And then some defects are going to be something that you can live with. So you may not notice them right away, and they may become more annoying over time. The one thing that I like to think about, the fix it later category. So in Agile, we talk about putting that in the backlog. So if there is a defect that we can live with for a little bit and we don't have the capacity to fix right now, we put that in the backlog and fix it later. So for me, if my backlog is filled with, really right now, it's filled with like credentials of value that I want to gain. So I'm already working on my next couple of degrees, or at least planning them out after I graduate with my PhD, because I really like school that much. So it could be a certificate that I'm looking for, or another graduate degree. And again, I'm probably weird and alone right there, but that's part of my path. All of those are in the backlog, right? So make sure you're keeping a list of those things that you want to continuously improve. All right. Deploy, so the deploy phase. Now, what do you do? So we built, we tested, we feel like everything's going pretty good. This is the point in time where you showcase your work. So you're now a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a digital banker. You've hit your goal. You feel like, yes, this is where I wanted to be. This is what I want. You've deployed this into production now. So you can choose to live and operate in this phase for a long time. Like you don't have to change. You don't have to change in this phase. Maybe you've crafted the perfect plan and you are okay living here for the next 50 years until you retire from this company. That is totally okay. But when you reach the deploy phase, you can also see pretty quickly if things are not 100% what you thought they were going to be. So that's when the iterative process really starts again. So maybe you've only deployed part of your code. Maybe you've only deployed part of your career. Maybe you've only done a piece of it. So maybe, like me, you wanted to get into digital, and sometimes you have to take an entry-level-ish job to get there and then work your way up. So maybe your goal was to get into a specific company, but you're not the manager or the leader or the senior director. Maybe you have to start out as a teller or on the phone or in an entry-level position. So from there, you've deployed yourself into that company, into that role, it's now time to start working on the next sprint. It's time to start working on the next phase. The other big thing to think through with Agile, and again, it's a great opportunity to always review what you're doing. So are your needs being met? Are your family's needs being met? Is everything working the way that you want it to work? You have to continue to ask yourself these questions, like, are your needs being met? And in Agile, most of my tech partners do a stand-up every single day. So it's a check-in on how things are going every single day. You should do that on a fairly regular basis. It doesn't have to be every day. It can be, but it doesn't have to be every day. I would think that a great opportunity to kind of reflect on your career is any time that you're getting an evaluation. So I get 2 evaluations a year at the bank, a mid-year and an end of year. So I usually reflect on where my career is going then. I get reviewed right now after almost every single class at SNHU. So that is, again, a great opportunity for me to reflect class by class and make improvements for the next class. And then I've also set myself a goal to get some 360 feedback, which is feedback from your partners, your peers, your manager, anonymously. Usually I do it about once a year. I definitely do it when I start a new role, and then I try to do it about a year into that role. So I think getting that 360 view is really, really important and helps with the review phase. So let's go back to the chat box here for a second. So does everybody typically get some kind of annual review or a regular update from your management team? Yep, lots of yeses. I don't remember anybody coming in as an HR major, but I'm sure all the HR managers there are saying yes. So lots of yeses for annual reviews, some no's, which again, I think is your manager is not doing you any service by not giving you a review. So hopefully you get that feedback. Hopefully you get that feedback somehow. And most importantly, make sure that you're doing your own reviews and that you feel comfortable about where you're going. All right, I'm going to go through a couple circles of mine, so my real life examples, and then I want to make sure that we have time at the end for questions. So let's take a look at one circle of mine. So this is my customer service role and transitioned into a dialer manager role. So my requirements really were pretty simple. Get off the phone. I don't want to talk to another customer again. My design for that was, I'll take anything. If anybody wants to hire me, I'll do it. I'll take it. So I was applying for everything. That wasn't a great strategy. So I started networking, meeting with people in my department and outside of my department, and making those connections, getting my name out there. And finally, I was able to find a job. It was a little bit more technical than I had the skill set for. And it was a night job. It was a night shift. So my shift ended at 11 p.m. And in the test phase, I kept asking myself, is this going to work? Is this going to work? And you know what? I talked myself into it. I'm going to make this work because I want to meet my requirements. So I took the job. I'm in production now. I'm working till 11 and I hate it. So that was my defect right away. I hated working until 11 p.m. It was dark. I was alone in the building all by myself from 9 to 11 every day. I did not like it. So that was my defect. And what did I do to start fixing that defect. So I had conversations with my leadership team. I kept a happy face about it. I made the best of that situation still, because nothing is going to be gained by me whining about my defect. So I needed to fix that myself. And I made the best of that situation that I could and continued to network until I found another job that met my needs more, and I transitioned to that. So again, so this is my vendor call center role, and then transitioning into my first digital role. So my requirements here really were more challenge. I need something more challenging to do every day. I'd been in that role for about 5 years. Like I said, I start to get a little itchy about getting something new, getting restless. Roles started to change a little bit over time, and I just didn't like the direction of where that role was going, so it's time for a change. So my design then became, hey, maybe I'll go to digital. I had a friend there. They talked to me about the role, and I started to develop a plan. So networking with folks that were there, searching for that new role, getting an advocate on my side to talk with the folks in digital about what I've done. And then, again, I asked myself, is this going to work? Is this something that I could do long term? And I said, yes. That became my job. Did I find a couple of defects? Yes. Was I able to fix them right away? No. But I lived with them for as long as I could. And eventually those defects worked themselves out. So during my review phase, yes, this is working. This is something that I'm able to do. And then fast forward a little bit to the role that I'm in now. Again, so my requirements here became, I want to learn something completely new. I'd spent 16 years of my career managing something to do with a credit card. So I always joke that I have supported credit cards from campaign creation, all the way through collection. So, and everything in between. So it's really time for something new. But my design phase really ended up being, I don't want it to be so new that it doesn't meet my skill set. So I still wanted something new, but still something in the sales realm, still something digital, still something that's focused on marketing and sales and really hits my background. So again, networking is a big thing for me. So making sure that your network knows where you want to go and they will help you get there. And that new job became my job. I became the digital deposits person. And is it working? Yes, absolutely. I really like this role. But am I already planning my next move? Also, yes. So I've only been in this role a year and a half now. But it's always good to still look forward and plan ahead and figure out what that next role is going to be. So never stop iterating. Never stop building on what you've already built in production right now. Don't stop building on you. And always remember to figure out who your end user is. Is it you? Is it your family? Is it some combination of that? But figure out who your end user is and make sure you're satisfying that person or people.